Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter. I like it, you like it, we all like Monster Hunter. End of the video. Okay, but seriously, the 5th gen of Monster Hunter is nearing its end, and we've only got a couple more updates left for Sunbreak. So, it's time to start wondering, what's next? What would Capcom be doing for the 6th generation? There's a lot of ways that you could take the series going forward, both in mechanics, settings, monsters, how many microtransactions are they going to put in it, you know, just a lot of ways you could take the series going forward. So this video is going to be basically just kind of throwing out some ideas here and there for maybe what a potential Monster Hunter 6 might look like. So, 5th gen, I think we can all agree on this, was kind of a mixed bag when it comes to its locations. It had a lot of cool ideas, you know, like the Rotten Vale, Coral Highlands, but you gotta admit, it kind of felt like they just kind of did the Mario levels. You know, you got your forest, you've got your desert, you've got your ice, you've got your volcano, you know, the usual kind of stuff. I think for Monster Hunter 6, they could possibly see a return to the tropical setting of well, not quite tropical, but tropical enough. They could also possibly do something like kind of what they did in 4 a little bit, and maybe have some kind of underground base, or perhaps like something in like a mountain. I think that could be a really interesting idea. Or they could do something just like completely unexpected and have sort of a more populated area, like a sort of low-tech city of sorts. As for the levels themselves, I think we can all agree that it's been long enough since the 3rd gen that underwater is probably going to come back eventually. And the 6th gen seems like a pretty good time to do that. You know, it's been God knows how long. I think we can all agree that they can give it another shot. If that is the case, I think we'll see a lot of areas that have both, you know, like Tri did it, both, you know, the usual land type area and then an underwater section. Or we could maybe even see an entire level that's just underwater. Sort of like what they did with the Ceadeus and Tri. Maybe some kind of like, you know, Atlantis type city ruined by a big spooky elder dragon put underwater. You go there, hunt some fish, having a good time. If they are gonna keep doing the Mario level type areas, I think they should at the very least, you know, do something, you know, have a little unique twist on it. In Portable 3rd, we saw sort of a unique spin out with the more rainy, autumny area of the Misty Peaks. You could also do sort of combine 2 areas into one, and sort of have 2 generic locations take up one thing, and then save that space you have for another area. You could have, you know, you could combine the desert and the volcano, and you could smash them together and have a, you know, a black sand sort of desert. I think that could be really cool. You could also do sort of like an ice beach with, you know, like parts that go underwater, and the water would be really cold, so you'd have to, you know, maybe get Teostra juice or something stupid like that to be able to unlock it. You know, something like that. I think a thing that they might want to do is, I don't know, maybe special weather conditions or changing seasons like they kind of had in 2. Just to make, you know, make quests a little more varied. Make it like, oh, I need to check what the weather is. Is it raining? Oh, better bring this. Oh, is there a storm out? Uh-oh, that means lightning monsters are going to be more powered up. I should bring this. I think that could bring a lot of uniqueness to the series, and I would really like to see something like that just to make, you know, a quest a little more unique than just, oh, is it day? Is it night? Who cares? It doesn't mean anything. As for mechanics, I have absolutely no idea what Capcom could be thinking of. I don't think many people expected them to do with the whole, like, slingshotting thing from Rise. So I think if they go in 6th gen, they're gonna do something really unexpected. So let's just, you could switch between 2 weapons with like the skill swap thing. Let's go with that. As for returning mechanics, like I mentioned before, underwater is probably gonna come back at some point. Maybe not 6th gen, but eventually they're probably gonna give it another shot. Investigations will probably come back because everyone liked them in World and Iceborne, and then they didn't rise for some reason, and then they were in Sunbreak, but it kind of bad. So they maybe want to have that in the base game, just so, you know, there's something more to do when you beat the final boss of whatever spooky dragon. Please, Capcom, don't do the Clutch Claw. Just don't do it. No one liked it, and if you did like it, what's wrong with you? What couldn't stay is wire bugs, but they'll probably stay in Rise, and they'll probably, if they keep them at all, they'll probably just do the ones that are scattered around the environment that you can, you know, use to traverse across the map. I think that the ones you use in combat will probably stay in Rise just to make it a little more unique. Switch skills could probably maybe see a return. I like them a lot. They could really, you know, mix things up a little bit in the combat. Same goes for Hunter Arts from the Generations Ultimate. They were pretty popular, so I think Capcom might be looking into bringing those back in one way or another. When it comes to mechanics from Frontier, they've kind of already stolen just a few little sneaky breadcrumbs here and there. Follow requests are literally just Rastas, but it's just a pre-made character instead of one you customize yourself. Follow requests might come back in 6th gen, but it's hard to tell if it'll just be the exact same thing as they were in Sunbreak, or if maybe they'll lean towards more of the Rasta type quest, where you customize your own partner character. I think what would be really interesting is a main series take on Frontier's Sky Corridor and Hunting Road. If you're not familiar, the Sky Corridor was sort of a tower-like area, but it was more of a dungeon with randomly generated rooms with traps, hidden chests, and just kind of random monsters you'd fight one after the other until you reach the top, where you fight Duremedira, which is kind of a horrible ice beast that would kick your ass until you die and come back to fight it again. The Hunting Road was sort of a similar mechanic, but instead of the tower and all the traps and all the fancy stuff, it was just fight a bunch of monsters, one after the other, getting gradually harder, until at the end you would fight a super buff white Fatalis at the 100th level, and boy, is that thing cool. I don't think they'd bring that back specifically, but I think they might do something similar. As for changing already existing mechanics, I'm not sure which I prefer between randomized decorations and randomized talismans. I know there's a lot of debate on which of them is the least terrible. Personally, I don't know which one I personally prefer. Another thing is the lobbies. I know a lot of people were upset when Rise did not have the ability to have larger lobbies and just limited to 4. Let's be real, that's probably because it was launching on the Switch, the little baby machine for babies. But since 6 will probably be launching on, current gen consoles and PC, I think we're probably going to get those larger lobbies back, and I think a lot of people will probably be excited about that. So, weapons. Those things you hit around, you swing, you kill a monster with, those things. Hey, 5th gen, what's with the no weapons? Like, you're the only generation to not do that. Like, every single gen before you added something. Like, you got Hunting Horn in 2, you got the Switch Axe in 3, and you got a bunch of weapons in 4th gen. It might be because Capcom is sort of... Maybe they don't want to have more weapons right now because there's already 14 of them, and they might feel that that's a little much right now. But let's speculate anyway. Who knows? Maybe they'll do something. Now, one idea that I've seen a couple takes on this, which I think could be interesting, is the whip. The way I see it is you could possibly have sort of a melee gun where you could switch between having, generic, whip strikes that, do a decent damage, and you could maybe, zoom in, with a scope on a gun, and do more precise attacks that could be, do a little more damage and maybe attack certain weak points to do something weird. Another idea, which I don't think I've seen a take on this before, but, who knows, maybe someone else has thought of this, is a alchemist staff, where sort of like a Monster Hunter take on a mage, with a bit of a spear going on, where you've got this big stick, and you mix different potions or vials in it to get different effects, oh, maybe this one makes your attacks do more damage, maybe this one makes your attacks go faster, maybe this one applies this element or this status effect, so on and so forth. I think it could be really interesting to have more of a sort of a blend between the hunting horn and I guess sort of the insect glaive or the lance. It would also give an opportunity to finally have multiple effects on a weapon. Frontier did it for years, and in Sunbreak we kind of got that with the fire and the poison on the Espinas dual blades, and then the weird shit going on with Flaming Espinas, where you had mostly fire, but also poison, but it just didn't have the poison stat on it for some reason. I'm not sure what they were going with that, but I mean, maybe that's a sign that they'll be just experimenting with the idea going forward. Going back to Frontier again, we have the Tonfas and the Magnet Spike. A lot of people are really into these. I personally have not played Frontier myself, so I can't give a statement on if they're awesome or if they suck balls. But I mean, hey, a new weapon, I'd be willing to try it out, see if it's any cool. As for the weapons themselves, frankly, I think you'd probably have a better time going over to Super Rad's video, which I'll link in the description, to explain the Tonfas and the Magnet Spike. He will definitely do a way better job than I would ever do. So go check him out. He's got some great content over there. Watch all of his videos, every single one. If you don't, I will cry. Okay, so Monster Hunter. What are you doing it? It's in the title. You hunt the monsters. The monsters are pretty neat. I think we can all agree on that. But again, much like how 5th Gen didn't introduce any new weapons, it also didn't introduce any new monster types. What's up with that? I think it's probably because they wanted to focus more on maybe giving some other monster types a little more of a boost. You know how, Fanged Wyverns just had Zinogre until World came around and gave him like a bajillion, and then we got some more in Rise and Sunbreak. But even then, listen, I get that Leviathans and crabs and bugs and whatnot didn't get in World because of the issues with terrain generation and navigation, but like, why did World have no amphibians and technically 2 fanged beasts? Like, surely they can navigate terrain just fine. They don't have weird legs or anything, so what's up with that? Rise made up for it a little bit, because it introduced a new amphibian and a new Temnoceran, or however you're supposed to say that, and, a subspecies, which, frankly, terrible subspecies. I don't like that guy at all. He's kind of lame. It had crabs, but only just the regular ones that kind of show up everywhere. I was kind of hoping they would have something new, so that's kind of a disappointment. And 0 Neopterons, just 0 bug. Snake Wyverns didn't get anything in this generation, but I think most people aren't going to complain about that because the only Snake Wyvern that exists is fucking Narajala, or however you're supposed to say that guy's name, and I'm pretty sure people are fine with that guy just kind of going in the corner for a bit. As for potential for new monster types in the 6th Gen, yo Capcom, where the worms at? Where's the wiggly guys? Give me wiggly guys. I want them. I want worms. I want slugs. I want snails with legs. I want jellyfish flopping around and doing wiggly stuff. If you're gonna introduce anything in the 6th Gen, make it wiggly. Octopuses are also really cool, but we're probably never gonna get one because Nakarkos is an Elder Dragon, and if they made another octopus, they had to be like, okay, why is this its own thing, but Nakarkos is an Elder Dragon? I guess they could just retcon Nakarkos to be like a badly classified Elder Dragon, because if you remember, Rajang was originally an Elder Dragon, well, in the game's story, until they found out, oh, it's just a fucking weird monkey. Another thing is that how is it possible that Monster Hunter Online did a actual like turtle before the main series? Like it's a turtle of like it's just a real actual animal. How come you haven't done it yet? That'd be so easy. I suppose they might not want to do it now because of how fast-paced the gameplay has become. That's probably also because also why they didn't bring back Gammoth for this generation. Kind of the only member of the Fated Four to not make a return in any way. But you know they could probably make it work. So as for returning monsters, Espinas and Flaming Espinas, as I'm sure you figured out, kind of opened the gate for monsters from Frontier to join the series. I personally don't expect it to be a regular thing. We'll probably just get like a couple sprinkled in every now and then maybe, assuming that, you know, it's not just a fluke and they didn't only do it as like a here you go, don't ask for anything ever again. But if they do decide to keep bringing them in, I think Hypnocatrice could be pretty likely, considering that he was already in the main series with appearance in Freedom Unite and then immediately thrown into the trash. As for Frontier exclusive monsters, I think that it would be really, really cool to get main series redesigns on Quarcepicet, Meriginas, or even Direx. I think they're really cool designs, and I would like to see a sort of main series interpretation of those guys. They are so cool, and I love them so much. Capcom, please give them to me. As for Elder Dragons, if you're familiar with with Frontier, then you're probably aware that Elder Dragons from Frontier have a sort of reputation for being a little wacky, so that might be a reason why we haven't gotten any of them yet. But if they do come in, which frankly I don't expect anytime soon, but I think it'd be neat. If we were to get one, it'd probably be maybe Xianqian or Guanzorimu, or possibly one of the Diora twins, since their sort of magnet mechanic they have going on kind of shows up in Rise with the floating rocks that appear around Thunder Serpent Narwa and Serpent Ibushi. I think that'd be really neat. So, a problem that both 5th gen games and their expansions have is that the early game is kind of filled with new guys, and they don't really have too many early game returning monsters. Like, where's Yankuku? Where's Gypsyros? You know, those kind of like sort of weird guys you kind of throw in the beginning just to have them there. Rise kind of helped that a little bit with a bunch of, you know, greats returning, but, you know, I think it'd be neat to have some of the, you know, the little baby monsters you whack on with a big stick. We need more of those guys. Speaking of the greats, why do they not have an actual, like, threat yet? All the greats and all the drones, they're all, like, super early game Babby monsters. You know, the dragony type bird wyverns, they have young Garuga, and then the actual, like, just a bird ones, they have Malfestia, but the greats and the drones, they don't have anything, and I think that's kind of a wasted opportunity, because you could sort of, you know, play on expectations a bit. You know, like, you would expect a great or a drone to be like a weakling, but then you actually go fight it, and it fucking stomps your ass in. They could have done that with Great Boggy, but Great Boggy doesn't exist. So, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. As for the flagship of 6th gen, Capcom, please don't do another Flying Wyvern or another Elder Dragon. We've got plenty of those. I would much rather have it that you just do a type that hasn't had a flagship rep yet. Bird Wyverns, Piscenes, Neopterons, Temnocerans, Snake Wyverns, they got nothing. Nada. Carapaceon's got Akira Vishimu in Frontier, but that's Frontier, so we're not going to count that, but it's more than nothing. If it is going to be a monster class that already has something, I would rather have it be, you know, a class that doesn't have much going on. Fang Beast just got Gammoth, and while Flying Wyverns do have the most flagship rep out of any class in the entire series, as far as I can think of, I don't think there's any flagships in the main series that have the sort of Akantor or Ukanlos kind of body type going on, where they're really hunched down and it's just kind of feels like do the weird belly crawl over the ground. Frontier got, how the fuck do you say his name?
オリバトラス
But again, that's Frontier, so we're not going to count that. Another thing that I hope they fix in 6th gen is the large amount of monster type and elements or statuses that don't exist yet. How do we not have a water element flying wyvern? Go look it up right now. They just don't exist in the main series. Frontier has several, and they got Pariapuria, Gorenzaburu, and Porobabaru. I never can say that guy's name right,
ポボルバルム
but you know who I'm talking about. I think it's time we get one in the main series. If you're not going to bring over one of them, do one yourself. Kind of goes without saying that types in the 4th gen don't really have proper representation in any form, considering they only have a few entries. So naturally, they don't have any elements. An idea I think that could be really neat is an ice spider, where sort of like Lunagaron, it forms ice over itself, and you'd have to break it, like Raknakadaki, and sort of just break its ice shield down over time to deal big damage. Another thing is, how have they not done a poison amphibian? That seems like it's just such a natural combination of type and status. There's plenty of poison frogs in the real world, so how have you not done one yet, Capcom? Please, give me a poisony boy. I want to feel the pain. So, another thing about the 6th gen is that in 2024, the 20th anniversary of Monster Hunter will be reached. It's hard to tell if Monster Hunter 6 itself will be an anniversary game, or if they'll do the game after that, because, as you know, Generations came out 2 years after the 10th anniversary, so there might be something like that again. And hell, there might not even be a 20th anniversary game, because it's going to be way, way harder these days to be able to do an anniversary game, because you can't just use the same old models anymore with just a new coat of paint. You gotta make a whole new model for every single monster you're coming in for the old games, and even if they've appeared in 5th or 6th gen, they might have to do some tweaking a little bit just to make them fit with the art style of whatever game they're doing. Because even monsters that appeared in World and returned in Rise, their models are very different. Their designs are tweaked by a pretty good amount, so even just doing that would be enough to have an anniversary title have a lot of effort. So there's a definitely real possibility that they might not even do that. I mean, Generations Ultimate had 93 large monsters. Because of they could just take an old model, do some tweaks with it, like give it some nice new textures, and send it on its way. You could not do that these days. You can't have that many monsters while making new models and new textures and new sounds, etc., etc., etc. So it's extremely unlikely that if there is a 20th anniversary game, they're not going to have nearly that many monsters. That's about everything I've got to say at the moment about Monster Hunter 6, or the 6th generation in general. What appears to be the final title update for Sunbreak is coming out in the spring, so I think it's pretty likely that we'll see a reveal either maybe at E3 or some other kind of event sometime later in the year. It would just make sense considering that, World got announced a little bit after Generations Ultimates was released, and then Rise was announced a little bit after the final update for Iceborne was revealed. So I think that, between spring and E3 time, that's just about enough time for them to, let the dust settle and announce the next step of Monster Hunter. Whenever that happens, whether it's E3, fall, next year, who knows, I'll probably be here to make a video analyzing it and just sort of talking about what kind of potential ideas they might be going with based off new information. So, that's me signing off, and I will see you eventually later. Ciao.